Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going to be taking a deep dive into a really thought-provoking part of the Quran.
Yeah.
Chapter 29,
Oh.
Surah Al-Ankabut,
Sorry.
which translates to the spider in English.
Interesting.
Yeah, so this chapter, it really delves into these concepts of faith and resilience, especially when things get tough, how those two are kind of intertwined.
Right. Yeah.
And it's fascinating how it does that, using both stories and teachings.
Well, and it's not just about saying you believe, right?
Absolutely.
It's really about how that belief is tested.
Yeah.
And then what you actually do when you're faced with challenges.
Yeah, and I think that's what really hit me right away, in the very beginning, verses 1 through 7.
Okay.
It's this almost like a reality check, that
Yeah.
it's about your actions and how you stand up for your beliefs when things are difficult.
Yeah.
That's what really shows your faith.
Totally.
What stood out to you in those opening verses?
Well, it's interesting because in Islamic belief, these tests, right, they're not meant to be like punishment.
Yo!
They're actually, they're seen as these opportunities to refine and elevate your faith.
I see.
So think of it this way. Life throws us all these curveballs, right?
Mm-hmm.
It could be a personal crisis, right?
Right.
Pressure from peers, or just even navigating those everyday ethical dilemmas that we all face.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's in those moments that, we really have to decide what we truly stand for.
Totally.
And if our actions are aligning with what we believe.
Right, and those moments can be defining, can't they?
Absolutely.
They really make you think about how you respond.
Yeah.
Okay, shifting gears a bit.
Sure.
Verse 8 has this advice that seems really tricky to put into practice. It says, respect your parents, but don't blindly obey them.
Right.
If they go against your faith.
Yeah.
Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you had to kind of reconcile those two things?
I mean, it's definitely a delicate balance, right?
Yeah.
Islam deeply values respecting your parents. I mean, there's even a specific term for it, filial piety.
Wow.
But at the same time, staying true to your own religious principles is paramount. And what's really interesting is that the Quran, it encourages respectful dialogue in these situations,
I see.
right? Aiming for understanding rather than just blind obedience.
So it sounds like it's about finding that middle ground where you can honor your parents,
Right.
but also stay true to your own beliefs.
Exactly.
Okay, there's another part that I found really caught my attention, verses 10 through 13.
Yeah.
And it's all about this concept of hypocrisy.
Okay.
Those people who talk the talk,
Right.
but don't walk the walk, especially when things get tough. And it made me wonder, do we all have a little bit of hypocrite in us sometimes?
Sure.
When we fall short of our own ideals?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a universal human struggle, right?
Right.
Actually live up to our aspirations.
Yeah.
But, I think what the Quran is emphasizing here is the importance of sincerity. Mm-hmm. True faith isn't just outward appearances.
Right.
It's really about that inner conviction.
Okay.
And it's that internal struggle that
Yeah.
really matters, even more than whether we always succeed
Oh, that makes sense.
in living up to those ideals,
Yeah. So much of faith seems to be about that internal battle, huh?
Absolutely.
Now, this is where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Surah Al-Ankabut, it includes these powerful stories of the prophets,
Okay.
Noah, Abraham, and verses 14 to 38.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Noah preaching for 1,000 years minus 50.
Right.
Talk about perseverance, right?
Right.
And then you have the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah for their wickedness.
Yeah.
I mean, those stories always kind of leave me speechless.
It's powerful stuff.
What struck you most about those stories?
Well,
And why do you think they're included here?
Well, in Islamic tradition, prophets are seen as these messengers of God's guidance. Right.
Okay.
And their stories are there to kind of remind us of the impact of both, belief and disbelief.
Oh, okay.
So Noah's story is this incredible example of unwavering faith and resilience, even when it seemed like nobody was listening. Right?
Oh, for sure.
And then you have this stark contrast with Sodom and Gomorrah,
Right.
which really underscores the consequences
Yeah.
of corruption and turning away from a moral code.
It's those stories are meant to make us really think about the choices that we make.
Absolutely.
In the path that we're on,
Totally.
I remember that part with the spider's web in verses 39 to 41. It's such a vivid image, right? And it represents those who rely on anything other than God.
Right.
What message do you think that image holds for us today?
Well, I think it's a really powerful reminder to examine what we're putting our trust in. Like the spider's web, even though it looks all intricate and secure,
right,
it's ultimately fragile. So it's like it's prompting us to ask ourselves, are the foundations of our lives, the things we rely on for support and meaning, are those things truly strong? Are we placing our trust in things that will last?
Right.
Or in things that could easily be like swept away?
It makes you think about where we're placing our energy and what we're prioritizing.
Totally.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. This next part really resonated with me.
Okay.
Verses 46 and 47. And it's where it encourages engaging in respectful dialogue with people of other faiths.
Yeah.
And in today's world where there's so much division and strong opinions, do you think that's really possible?
Well, it's definitely a challenge, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's, more important now than ever. One of the core values in Islam is respecting different faiths and seeking understanding. And, even when disagreements exist.
Yeah.
And they will, right?
For sure.
It's about finding common ground and having constructive conversations.
Okay.
It all comes back to recognizing our shared humanity.
Yeah, that idea of shared humanity is so important.
It really is.
Especially these days, it feels like I'm noticing a theme here,
What's that?
It seems like this chapter is really challenging us to think about what we believe and why.
It really is.
Like it's pushing us.
It's encouraging us to go beyond that surface level and really grapple with the deeper meaning of faith and how it plays out in our lives,
For sure.
Now, shifting to verses 56, 59.
Okay.
There's this idea of rewards for those who believe and do good deeds, but also like the punishments that were described earlier in the chapter.
It feels like this balance of reward and punishment is something that you see in a lot of religious texts. Why do you think that is?
Well, in Islam, divine justice, it encompasses both mercy and accountability, right? So it recognizes that our actions have consequences,
right,
both good and bad.
Okay.
And, this idea, it kind of resonates with a very human sense of fairness, doesn't it?
Totally.
Like we kind of intuitively feel that good actions should be, acknowledged,
right,
and then harmful action should have repercussions.
It seems to be a universal principle,
Absolutely,
that goes beyond any specific religion.
Absolutely.
It's interesting how those themes connect to our own sense of morality and justice.
Yeah.
Wow, we've covered so much ground already.
I know, right?
But there's still more to unpack in Surah Al-Ankabut.
Oh, there's so much more.
We'll be back in a moment to continue our deep dive.
Can't wait.
Stay tuned. Welcome back, everyone. It's amazing how much depth there is in just this one chapter of the Quran.
It really is. Each verse seems to open up a whole new layer of meaning.
It's interesting. We were just talking about this balance of reward and punishment.
Right.
And it makes you wonder about those people who seem to get away with doing bad things while good people sometimes suffer.
Yeah.
But then I came across these verses 60 through 64.
Okay.
Which talk about how God provides for all creatures,
right,
even those who don't seem to be doing much to deserve it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like a reminder that we're not really in control and that there's this higher power taking care of things in ways that we might not always understand.
Yeah, those verses are a beautiful illustration of divine providence.
Okay.
The idea that God is constantly providing for and sustaining all of creation.
And it's not just about material sustenance either, right?
Not at all.
It's about the interconnectedness of everything and how we all rely on each other and on God for our very existence.
Absolutely.
That makes me think about our responsibility to take care of the environment and each other.
For sure.
After all, if God is providing for everyone, we should be doing our part to share those blessings and ensure that everyone has what they need.
Exactly. Caring for the environment.
Right.
And for those less fortunate is an integral part of living a righteous life in Islam.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that these gifts are not just for us to hoard.
Oh, I see.
But to share and steward responsibly.
It's a good reminder to check our priorities.
Totally.
Okay, there's this verse 65, that I found a bit ironic.
Okay.
It talks about how people tend to forget God when things are going well.
Right, yeah.
So like they only remember to pray when they're in trouble and need help.
When they need something.
Yeah, but then they credit their good fortune to other things.
Right, it's so human, isn't it? It's like, it's so easy to become complacent and take things for granted when life is good.
Yeah.
And this verse is like a gentle nudge.
Okay.
To cultivate a more consistent awareness of God's presence in our lives.
So not just when we need something, but in every moment.
Exactly, both the good and the bad.
Oh, okay. So it's like we should be grateful for the good times and then turn to God for strength during the tough times.
Exactly.
Speaking of turning away from God,
yes.
Verse 68 talks about those who fabricate lies about God or reject the truth when it's right in front of them.
Right.
What do you make of that?
Well, this verse really highlights the gravity of distorting the truth.
No.
Especially when it comes to matters of faith. Attributing falsehoods to God is considered like a major sin in Islam.
Oh, wow.
But it also emphasizes the importance of being open to truth.
Okay.
Even when it challenges our preconceived notions.
Yeah.
Or makes us uncomfortable.
It's not just about avoiding lies then, right?
Right. It's about actively seeking truth.
Okay.
And being willing to accept it, even if it's not what we expected.
That can be really hard.
Rejecting truth, even when it's evident, can lead us down a path of spiritual blindness.
Right.
And misguidance.
So for those who genuinely seek truth and strive for righteousness,
yes.
There's a promise there.
There is a beautiful promise in verse 69.
Okay.
God will guide them along his path.
That's a really comforting thought.
It is.
Knowing that even when we stumble, if we're sincerely trying to do what's right, we'll find our way back.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that we're not alone in our struggles.
It's a good reminder.
Divine support is available to those who earnestly seek it.
What's striking to me is how this chapter manages to be both comforting and challenging at the same time.
It really does, right?
And gives us guidance and reassurance, but also doesn't shy away from pointing out our flaws and encouraging us to do better.
It's the beauty of the Quran. It speaks to the human condition in all its complexity, offering both warnings and encouragement, challenges and support.
It's like this guidebook, huh?
It is, for navigating life's complexities.
Yeah.
And a source of profound wisdom that has resonated with people.
For centuries. So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, what are some key takeaways from this section of Surah Al-Ankabut that you think our listeners should keep in mind?
I'd say the major themes that stand out are the importance of gratitude.
Okay.
Recognizing the consequences of our choices. The significance of seeking and upholding truth.
Right.
And the reassurance that God guides and supports those who are striving for righteousness.
Yeah.
These are teachings that they offer timeless wisdom, helping us navigate the complexities of life and find meaning and purpose in our journey.
Those are powerful insights to carry with us.
I think so.
We've covered a lot.
We have.
But there's still more to explore in this incredible chapter.
Definitely.
We'll be back in a moment to delve into the final part of our deep dive into Surah Al-Ankabut.
Can't wait.
Stay tuned. And we're back. I'm really excited to dig into this last part of Surah Al-Ankabut with you.
Me too.
It feels like we've uncovered so many layers of meaning already.
I know, right? It's amazing how each section just kind of builds on the last one,
Yeah.
Revealing new insights into faith and the human experience.
So earlier we were talking about those stories of the prophets.
Right.
Noah, Abraham, Lot. But there are a few other figures mentioned in verses 39 and 40 that I found interesting.
Okay.
Qarun, Pharaoh, and Haman.
Right.
They seem to represent a different side of the coin, like a cautionary tale about what happens when you let arrogance and that worldly power go unchecked.
It's such a powerful contrast, isn't it?
Yeah.
While the prophets embody humility and submission to God.
Right.
These figures, they represent the dangers of wealth, power, and just defiance of divine guidance.
And their downfall serves as a reminder, doesn't it?
Totally.
That true success isn't measured by material possessions or social status.
It's about righteousness and alignment with God's will.
It's they had it all.
They did.
But in the end, it meant nothing because they weren't grounded in something bigger than themselves.
Exactly.
Which brings me back to the title of this chapter, like the spider.
Yeah.
I have to ask, why a spider? It seems like such an odd choice,
Right.
Especially when we're talking about such like profound themes.
Well, that's where the symbolism gets really interesting, right? Remember that image of the spider's web as like a representation of false security? That ties into the like central message of the whole chapter.
Okay.
True strength and resilience, it comes from God, not from fleeting worldly attachments.
And the spider, despite this like intricate web, is ultimately vulnerable and weak.
Totally.
So the chapter uses that imagery, right?
Yeah.
To challenge us to examine the foundations upon which we build our lives.
It does, like, are we relying on something solid and lasting?
Oh, okay.
Or are we clinging to these fragile, temporary structures?
It's almost like a wake-up call, urging us to check our priorities and make sure we're building our lives on something meaningful and enduring.
Absolutely.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Surah Al-Ankabut, what's the one big takeaway that you hope our listeners will walk away with?
That's a tough one.
I know, there are so many.
There are so many, but if I had to choose just one, I'd say it's that Surah Al-Ankabut is like, it's a call to cultivate inner strength and resilience.
Okay.
Through faith in God. It's about aligning our actions with our beliefs.
Right.
Even when we're facing challenges, and building our lives on a foundation that can withstand the like storms of life.
And that's a message that transcends time and culture, doesn't it?
It really does.
Offering guidance and hope.
Absolutely.
To anyone seeking a more meaningful existence.
I love that.
And to our listener out there, we would love to hear your thoughts.
We would.
What resonated with you from this deep dive into Surah Al-Ankabut?
What insights will you like carry with you?
What will you take away from this?
Maybe even think about like what spider webs you might be clinging to.
Oh, that's good.
In your own life, you know? What steps can you take to build a stronger foundation?
Based on faith and trust in God.
Exactly.
Those are great questions to ponder.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us on this fascinating journey.
This was a great deep dive.
Through Surah Al-Ankabut.
Until next time.
Until next time, keep diving deep.
Keep seeking knowledge.
And we'll see you then